Hey. Hello, you know him as an actor in early roles such as October Sky and Donnie Darko, magnificent performances in Jarhead and Brokeback Mountain, and some notable accomplishments recently, in particular in Nightcrawler, a film which was also a producer. This actor explores the darkest places in us as human beings, but does so with an unexpected humor and with a sort of trademark knowing grin. It is a real pleasure to bring out on stage Jake Gyllenhaal.
Woo! Okay.
Welcome to San Francisco, and congratulations on this incredible film.
Thank you for having me. I didn't know I had a trademark knowing grin. I'm glad that I fooled you. So.
We can explore that later. I want to start by sort of asking you a little bit about your relationship with Jeff, the film's subject. I saw an interview where you said that he helped you let go of the cynic inside, sort of as part of the process of making this movie. And I'd love you to talk about that a little bit.
Well, the cynic is not fully gone.
Okay.
But Jeff, I think Jeff leads pretty much everything with humor. And, even through moments where he himself is afraid or he himself is struggling, it's always with a sense of humor. And I think for me, just generally being in my profession, I tend to take myself pretty seriously, the absurd job that I find myself doing. And he just tears me up for it. And I also see him just the action of getting up and walking and just doing that, how much strength it takes. And I think it just, I'm amazed by him. And in earnest, I'm so moved by just sort of what he is and what he does that all that cynicism does sort of go away.
I think I saw that you've been working with him for maybe 2.5 years on the film. And one of the things that's so remarkable about the movie is the sort of physicality of your performance and sort of the command of this sort of very specific kind of pain and anger that seems to come with this affliction. And just want to actually ask you about that, like how you developed those tools and whether Jeff was a partner with you in that.
Yes, as soon as I was involved in this project, it was me and Jeff, and I spent a ton of time with him. I'm the type of person that needs a long runway. I like time. I enjoy the preparation. It's my favorite part of the process. So, and also just producing the project too over time, you're in pre-production and you're spending a ton of time in a lot of different aspects of the film. But with Jeff, I watched him, I spent time with all of his caretakers, all the medical staff, all the people that helped him initially get through it, and then all the people post, the outpatient who helped him learn to walk. So I spent time with them and his family and his friends, and there's a huge community around Jeff, an incredible community of people. And physically, one of the first times I ever met him, he took off his legs and he showed me how they worked, and he showed me how he got around without his legs. And we went around his house, and we actually first met in this sort of hotel weird ballroom. And he first walked around, showed me the legs, and then he took them off. And
just you guys alone in some
No, it was me and David Gordon Green. No. It was me and David Gordon Green and Todd Lieberman, our other producer, and our visual effects team, who are extraordinary. I watched him a lot. That was basically it. And I think the body does extraordinary things, particularly in he lost both legs above the knee, and I had never seen any injury like that. And I just spent a lot of time, and over enough time, you can observe and it sinks in, and all of a sudden, if you're an actor, I think you start to feel it in your heart and in your body.
Did it require sort of physical practice? So were you, some of the scenes when you're, crawling through the parking lot and stuff like that are so I mean, almost difficult to watch because of the strength required to actually do it.
Well, I think your center of gravity completely changed, obviously. And I think, that's one of the things with Jeff that you realize is that in the midst of this event and all the things he was going through, he's also recalibrating his own physical world, his own mental world, his own emotional world, but really the physical world first. So his center of gravity is different, and he is essentially also just sitting in a chair. Your point of view of the world is different, and he always talks about his parents and how they sort of made him into a child again, and he felt very infantile in so many ways. And so I felt like you hold your body, and you see Jeff protecting his heart, and that was a big thing for me that I saw. He has this huge heart. I did a lot of, not only physically, but a lot of speech work with Tim Monick, an amazing dialect coach, and he said to me, it's not a dialect that Jeff speaks, it's an idiolect.
What does that mean?
I'm not really sure. It sounds good, so I use it in Q&As. What it really means is that, I think the way in which he speaks, his rhythm, his intonation, we studied that. Each one of us obviously speaks in a different way. Some of us, and when we are in a different situation, we are more inviting or less inviting. Jeff will use two things. He'll say, yeah, or he'll be like, yep. And those two choices, as you hear them for hundreds of interviews, is an inviting sort of nature of yeah, and then he'll just cut off the conversation with, yep, that's the end of that, And he has that over his speech. And I noticed, though, the overarching theme of Jeff is that he is always inviting. And he is always loving. And some of that makes him very childish. And some of that just is what he's protecting with his body and what he had left of it, or what he felt he had left of it at the time. So there's a lot in him that he was kind of recalibrating and dealing with. And trying to do what he does with legs was very, very difficult, I have to say, to try and figure it out. There's a scene where we're walking down, I'm going down the stairs, and it's odd.
Right.
Yeah.
It's different. I think what you're talking about in terms of the heart of the film and the kind of emotional connections that are created between different people and the vulnerabilities and frailties you see. One of the things I really love about the movie is that while Boston Stronger is a kind of a catchphrase, there's so many different ideas about what might make people stronger that kind of come through the movie. And I just assume that there's realizations that you all probably had making the movie between you and David and the other cast as you sort of went through the story and interacted with the family. And kind of what made you stronger, in all of this? What made your cast and your colleagues stronger?
I have to say, being with Jeff and a lot of the people around Jeff, I believe that it is your vulnerability that makes you strong. Your ability to share where you are weak. One example is Jeff, for a long time, didn't use a cane, and when I first met him, he had his legs, but he could walk half a block and he'd get winded and sit down. And at the time he was drinking still. He has been 15 months sober, and struggling with a lot of different things. He's now in therapy 3 times a week, and he's very proudly, and he'll speak. I'm not saying anything he wouldn't say himself, or I haven't heard him say now hundreds of times that he's 15 months sober. He came to see me. I did a show this winter in New York, and he came to see me, and he had a cane, and I said to him, I was like, "You seem stronger than I've ever seen you." And he was like, "Oh, thanks." And then I said, "It's because of the cane." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, well, Jeff does this thing." And I feel that. I feel that so often I put on a sense of maybe confidence or certain things in so many places where I feel so unsure and so insecure. And Jeff shows me that, and has showed me that it's okay to show those things. And I think that's what we've all learned. And to be honest, David Gordon Green, Tatiana Maslany, Miranda Richardson, particularly me and Tatiana, went through some really interesting, rough moments in the process of making this movie in those scenes. Yeah. You know, that scene where she's screaming at me like, you know, that you don't scare me, Jeff. That wasn't written, that was us. We were going at each other in those scenes, and she's not afraid, but she showed me all this about herself and her. And I think that vulnerability makes us stronger together.
That's so interesting. You know, it's such a strong script that it didn't occur to me that there was a lot of improvisational work in it. But
not a lot. Admittedly, I don't want to take away from John Polano and his incredible screenplay. I mean, he's the guy who wrote "If Oprah's Your Lifeline, then you got a lot of worse troubles, Daddy." That's a great line. So I don't want to say, you know, we improv this whole movie.
It's really funny. But yeah, it's interesting that there's an intensity to those moments that's just, it's very hard to capture, you know, without actually being able to let loose. And did you tell me about it a little bit, like, when did you give yourselves permission to kind of go there?
You know, it happened over time, but Tatiana in particular is incredibly devoted. And
she's fantastic in the movie.
She's fantastic. And much like Aaron, she's the rock of the whole thing. And her strength is so clear, you know. It took us time. I keep saying time because that's what we had. We had time. And David creates a space where, for instance, for that scene, there are a number of scenes where we shot over long takes. You know, we just spent a lot of time either repeating the take or just being with each other and rolling. The scene with the sutures is a take where the sutures are being removed, is a take we did 2 takes, 20 minutes each, you know. And that was the real Dr. Kalish, who is Jeff's actual surgeon, speaking, to us, and his real nurses. And one in particular, Odessa Boykin, who Jeff calls the Rottweiler, who protected him. She was there. She's the one who takes out my breathing tube at the beginning, and you know, I think that David surrounded the space with real people, the real people that surrounded him.
I didn't realize there were that many real people in the movie.
Oh yeah.
But that must have been very weird for those doctors and nurses, because that day must have been incredibly traumatic for them as well.
Well, yes, and I think also healing for everybody in a way, you know. If anything, what I realized is that we made this movie for Jeff, and for Jeff to see himself and to see who he is to people and to see what he's been through. And to me, that's the proudest accomplishment of the whole thing. But, you know, these are some extraordinarily brave people. These are people that I can't even say how extraordinary they are. So to be in a movie, I mean, Odessa in particular was like, where do I go? Oh, I'm over there? Okay, yeah. Should you do what I do? Okay, yeah, cool. You know, it was literally like that, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, so I think that was, and for Dr. Kalish, she was so open. Actually, Dr. Kalish, the reason why this all happened was because David and I were talking with Dr. Kalish about something else, and David had auditioned a lot of actors saying the lines that the doctor says in the movie. And he just wasn't finding anybody that he was satisfied with. And so David turned to me and he was like, you think Dr. Kalish should audition for this? And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. That's a cool idea. And Dr. Kalish came in the next day, super nervous, like wearing his white lab coat, and he sucked. It was really bad. It was really bad. It was like, he was like, blah, blah, blah. And so David then said, just scrap the script, just talk to me the way you would, you know, talk to a patient or you talk to their parents, and he did, and it was beautiful, and so that's what he did.
It's amazing. You mentioned that you made the movie for Jeff. What did he, when he first saw, did he see early cuts or did he see a finished film, and what was his reaction to that?
He didn't see early cuts. He's very savvy with cinema. He knows movies, and he sort of instinctually understands the creative process. I really don't understand how he does it, but he was very involved in pre-production throughout the preparation, and then we started shooting, and he said, you guys do your thing. And I would text still, and we call each other, but he was never on set really, except for the first day. And then really in post-production, the same thing. He was not really involved in that aspect. We first screened the movie for him and his family in June, July. Patty apparently left a few times to have a couple cigarettes, and then she, when asked if she liked it, she was like, my apartment's not that dirty. So there's like, you know, and then when I asked Jeff, because I was shooting in Spain, and he liked Jeff, but he had changed the date a few times, so I couldn't get to Boston. I texted him, so what do you think? Afterwards, he was like, good job. And then I was like, what's that mean? And then I was like, okay, cool. Like, kind of like one of those, like, just texting a girl to see if you want to hang out again. And nothing. I got nothing from him until 2 days later. And then he was able to kind of verbalize how he felt. I think it was very overwhelming for everyone. I think it was probably odd and overwhelming. But then Jeff and I saw it when it premiered at the Toronto Film Festival just a week or so ago. We sat together and saw it for the first time. I've never been so nervous for almost anything in my life. And we sat there and we laughed, we cried together. And at the end, the spotlight came up on him. And he was like, what do I do? I go, get up. And he got up, and everybody got up with him. And it was like, I think everybody knew, maybe like you guys know from seeing this, the journey he went through to just stand. And it was incredible.
Wow. Now, has the movie screened in Boston? And how'd it go?
They all agree that Patty's apartment is too dirty. There were some complaints about Southie accents, even though the actors with the Southie accents are from Southie, but that's a whole other thing. But it was incredible. It was incredible. We premiered the movie, the U.S. premiere at the Spalding Rehabilitation Center, which is where Jeff,
movie, right?
Yep, which is in the movie, which is an incredible facility, just incredible. It's full of light and love and huge spaces and healing, and with all the people who are extras, amputees, people who were some of the survivors of the marathon bombings, and the doctors and nurses, and it was extraordinary. Yeah, and I was, and it was the first time I've seen Jeff in pants, so it was full pants. So it had to have been special for him.
So you produced a few movies before this, including Nightcrawler, which you were one of the producers on. This is the first film for your new company, way to go out of the gate. Is this kind of an idea of the next phase of Jake's career, or is this the kind of movie you want to make? What can we expect from this company?
Well, hopefully a lot of good things. But yeah, I think it is. I think you get to a point, I mean, I'm so grateful to be an actor, but I love making films, and I love giving filmmakers the opportunity and helping filmmakers tell their stories. There's nothing I love more. Maybe the thing I love more than that is watching an actor across from me do incredible work. Those are probably my top two. And so I think what you can expect from us is, you know, we've been very ambitious over the past few years, and I have to say that the company that finances the company saved this movie, and they paid for this movie when other people were kind of almost letting it slide. They believed in it, and they're amazing. We have a lot of different projects. My partner and I, who's an amazing woman named Reva Marker.
Great producer.
She's a great producer. She produced Beast of No Nation and a number of movies. But what can you expect from us? Stuff like this, I guess. And films, I think we're very focused on an equal amount of films being made by both men and women, starring both men and women. I think that's very important for us. Or my mom would really kick my ass. That's an agreement we had and how we really bonded, I think. I can't really, we have a number of projects in development already. Yeah.
Fantastic. Before I turn it over to the audience, we have time for a couple, I think. I just want to talk about this in relationship. There's just been quite an extraordinary number of roles, and I feel like there has been this really kind of interesting interplay in some of your best work between people who have like a lot of darkness in them, but there is this sort of humor, and there's kind of, from the very beginning, there's this kind of interesting through line, and that attraction to those roles interests me, but also how Jeff compares for you in your head to those kind of other touchstones in your career so far.
Well, I believe we all have darkness. I think it's a beautiful thing. I think as scary as it can be, I don't think we should shy from it, because I think it can be illuminating. Right. So I believe that about the characters, and I believe that I always find it fun to delve into that space. What was the second part of the
Just kind of asking you relationship to the other characters.
Sorry, because it happens sometimes. Yeah.
Relationship to some of the other characters you played over the years. Where does Jeff land? Yeah.
I am so grateful that Jeff came into my life. I have no idea how it happened. When I first saw that photograph of him, I had no idea that our lives would intersect, that the universe would bring the two of us together. I had an acting teacher who died a year and a half ago, extraordinary woman, who always said that the target draws forth the arrow. And I believe that about roles, and I believe that about so many things in life. And all I can say is that I believe that somehow this thing drew me towards it, and I am so grateful, because I feel very differently actually about darkness and about creation of character and about looking at the world. I think positivity is everything, but not shying away from the pain and the mess and the complexity that makes everything so great between all of us, and that has always been important. But I think the positivity throughout it, regardless, is also equally important, and I can see that in Jeff. I don't know the Herman Melville quote by heart, but in theory, and paraphrasing badly, in that sermon, when you think of the mast of the ship, the lowest part is, the highest part is twice, 3 times as high as the lowest. So I just believe somewhere, seeing Jeff, that for all of that pain that he's been through, he knows joy unlike so many people in the world. And that's incredible, and I cannot believe that I've been blessed to even be a little part of his life.
Fantastic. Do we have time for 1 or 2? Anyone has? We have time for 2.
Speaking of dark. Oh.
There we go. Who's got something for Jake? Yeah, I got one there.
So I wondered about the scene in the bar where everybody was fighting, and he was saying, "Somebody punch me." I just thought it was so profound, and I wondered if that was true or what was going on there.
That was true. It's also true that there were a number of people who came up to him, these conspiracy theorists, who said that to him, things like that. Yeah. Which is such a strange irony in the midst of that they could hit him so hard with that and then not actually hit him, Yeah. But yes, I think there's this general thing where, the physical world, people don't want to interact in the physical world in that way, but they don't really acknowledge how much they can hurt in the mental. And so that scene is pretty amazing as a result. That's a John Polano scene. The courage to write that too. When I read that, I was like, whoa. And it's true. Yeah.
Beautifully staged too. You just see these bodies flying around him,
and that's in the Hong Kong, which is the place where they really go. Windowless Hong Kong, which you can get like a literal all-you-can-eat buffet. And when I say all-you-can-eat, serious all-you-can-eat buffet, $2. And then all-you-can-eat really does all come out. So no, it's not kidding. But it's not for the food.
Yep, in the back there. Yep, sir.
I don't think the characters had a chance to play were based on real living human beings. I've often wondered with actors how much a character stays with them over time after they've finished playing the character. And you've given the impression tonight that obviously this man stays with you in many ways. I was curious if you could talk a little more about that.
Yeah, thanks. There were these funny moments when we were making the movie where when Jeff wasn't there during the filming, where I felt Jeff was there with me, or in me, because some of the scenes were so true to what happened with him. I think afterwards, I drove home actually with my producing partner, and we finished the movie, which was as beautiful as it was tough to make, and I cried the whole way home. I mean, literally the whole way home from Boston to New York. I lived a block away. No, literally, I walked 4 feet. I cried the whole time. So it's really tough. I was surprised. I think we're all, you let those things go. Sometimes I have a very hard time understanding that, this job I do does to people. It takes a while, and I think there are things even when I'm with Jeff now, he does something, an expression, or he's moving, and you're like, oh, yep. Mm-hmm. Then I'm like, whoa, I'm like, yep. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that happens a little bit, and I love it too. It's like you spend time with anybody and you just pick up their mannerisms. It's the same thing with all of us. You're like, oh my God, I'm acting like my dad. It's the same kind of thing, I think.
That's great. All right, should we do like one last one? Who's got a great one? Look at your hand. Okay, you're right there.
I'm actually from Boston and was there on the day of the bombing, which obviously really emotional film. How did you work with the city of Boston, keeping the authenticity? I'm sure there was some critique along the way of, an event that was so recent. And what do you think that he learned from you out of this? And do you think he was ever worried about being in the spotlight because of the film?
So a couple questions there. So the first one was basically how did you work with the city of Boston to preserve the authenticity in the face of criticism? And then the second part was, what did Jeff learn from you, and was he nervous about being in the spotlight?
David Gordon Green is a type of director that's just, again, like Jeff, so open-hearted. Never created any tension, and was always respectful. I think we were always a movie that was about trying to just be open, it was tough at times, I think everybody was, we couldn't shoot on Boylston, we couldn't, there were a lot of places that were too sensitive. We had a certain point we were going to try and maybe shoot the day before the marathon, there's still a lot of spectators and still a lot of stuff going on, and it seemed like we may be able to, and then we couldn't, and we constantly ran into the sensitivity and the still very raw feelings that were there, and I think that's what the movie is about. So we understood, and so we'd be like, okay, well, where do we shoot? We go to Maine, they have a marathon there. I mean, literally, we had those conversations. We'd lose a location, and we go, okay, what do we do? And we say, well, how we shoot that little sequence. For instance, the bombing sequence itself, initially in the earlier drafts, always happened at the beginning of the movie. But as we started to work with the city, and I believe this about movies, they show themselves to you. We realized we didn't have a location. And then one thing led to another, and the discussion came about, well, this isn't really about that at all. This is about loss. And the big scene in the movie is when there's a potential of losing the person who he loves the most and who got him through that situation. And what does that spark? And what that sparks, I think, for him is the loss of his legs and the loss, so much loss. And I think that connects to all of us. So it became bigger than just, it became bigger, like for the city of Boston, I think bigger than that. It was a huge thing for the whole world. So it was very sensitive, and we were always trying to understand it. And there was a whole other movie being shot at the same time, movie Patriots Day, and which David said, you know, he's like, you know, there's a lot of sensitivities going on. He's like, oh, it'd be great, we should just do it together. Like, you should play Jeff in their movie, and then Mark Wahlberg should run through, you know? You know, there was all this stuff about, like, oh, they're making two. It's like, we're not making the same movie. We knew we weren't making the same movie. So there's that. And then, because I talked so much, I forgot the second.
What did Jeff learn from you?
Well, Jeff learned from me. A great skill of oration. No, I don't know. I like to think that I'm somebody who is not as afraid to just say that they're what they feel, like that they're hurt or they're scared or, you know, they need somebody. And, you know, I pride myself on the fact that Jeff calls me and he's like, I'm feeling like shit, or this really freaked me out, or whatever it is, and then I'm there and he knows that I'm not afraid. So I think that I feel like that's what I do for my job a little bit. I would try to, best I can. And I think hopefully I can show them that a little bit.
Thank you so much, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Woo!